the first thing you notice about Lemp Mansion isn't the architecture or the age of the stone. It's the silence. A heavy, listening silence, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. Long before the doors creak open, the house seems aware of you. This was once the proud home of the Lemp brewing family, a dynasty built on wealth, celebration, and laughter. But beneath that success, something darker took root, growing quietly, patiently, until tragedy became a permanent resident. In the late 1800s, the Lemps ruled St. Louis with their brewery, their name synonymous with prosperity. Parties echoed through these halls, glasses clinked, music drifted down the staircases. Yet sorrow arrived uninvited. One by one, family members met tragic ends, deaths wrapped in grief, illness, and despair. Each loss felt like a door slamming shut, and with every closing door, the mansion seemed to grow heavier, darker, more alive. People say pain leaves an imprint. In Lemp Mansion, that imprint never faded. Visitors describe footsteps, pacing the corridors when no one is there, as if unseen figures are still walking familiar paths. Some claim to hear muffled voices, whispers that rise and fall like half-remembered conversations. Others speak of sudden cold spots, a chilling presence brushing past them, leaving the unmistakable feeling that they are not alone. Those who believe in Jinn, spirits that exist alongside our world, say places like Lemp Mansion become gathering points. Not evil by nature, but restless. Drawn to strong emotions, grief, regret, unfinished business. The tragedies of the Lemp family created a continuity of sorrow, a spiritual echo that never found release. Jinn, spirits, ghosts, whatever name you give them, something stayed behind when the family left. Late at night, shadows are said to move against the walls, stretching where no light should reach. Doors open slowly, deliberately, as if guided by an invisible hand. Some guests report being touched lightly on the shoulder, turning around to find empty air. The rational mind searches for explanations, but the heart knows fear when it feels it. Suspense tightens in your chest as you realize the house is not just a structure, it is a witness. The most unsettling stories come from those who stayed the longest. Employees and overnight guests describe a feeling of being watched, especially in the upper rooms. Not a hostile stare, but a curious one, as if the spirits are studying the living, wondering why they can leave while others cannot. Time inside the mansion feels distorted, moments stretching unnaturally. Continuity breaking down between past and present. The line between what was and what is becomes thin, dangerously thin. Perhaps the most chilling thought is this: Lemp Mansion doesn't need to scare you. It simply exists, carrying its memories like open wounds. The tragedies never said goodbye, and neither did the spirits bound to them. As you step back outside, and the door closes behind you, the silence returns. And for just a second, you might swear you hear breathing from within, slow, patient, waiting for the next visitor to listen. Long before Lemp Mansion became known for ghost sightings and whispered legends, it was a house filled with ambition, pride, and an almost intoxicating sense of permanence. The Lemp family did not simply live there. They poured their identity into its walls. Every brick was laid with confidence, every room designed to reflect success and control. But when tragedy begins inside a place built on certainty, the fall feels deeper, and the echo lasts longer. This is where the continuity of sorrow begins, quietly at first, almost politely, as if grief itself was asking permission to stay. The first loss struck like a crack in fine glass. Barely visible, but impossible to forget once you know it's there. The family tried to continue as if nothing had changed, maintaining appearances, hosting gatherings, and speaking in measured tones. Yet pain has a way of seeping through even the strongest facades. Each tragedy that followed did not exist alone. It connected to the one before it, forming a chain that linked room to room, generation to generation. This continuity of loss transformed the mansion from a home into a vessel, one capable of holding emotions far heavier than joy. As deaths accumulated, grief became routine, almost expected. The mansion learned these emotions. Some believe that spirits, jinn, ghosts, entities caught between worlds, are drawn to such repetition. Not a single moment of sorrow, but an ongoing pattern. In many traditions, jinn are said to exist in places where human emotions burn intensely and continuously. Lemp Mansion offered exactly that. Despair layered upon despair, unresolved and unspoken. The spirits did not arrive suddenly, they drifted in slowly, settling like dust that no one noticed until it was everywhere. Suspense grew not through dramatic events, but through silence. After each tragedy, certain rooms were avoided, certain corridors walked more quickly than others. Servants and family members sensed it. The air felt thicker, as if the house itself was grieving. At night, the quiet stretched unnaturally long, broken only by faint sounds that could never be traced. A soft knock with no source. A sigh that didn't belong to any living person. These were not violent hauntings, but patient ones, shaped by continuity rather than chaos. The ghosts associated with Lemp Mansion are often described as echoes rather than apparitions. Shadows that repeat familiar movements. Footsteps that follow old routines. This suggests something deeply tied to memory, as if the spirits are reliving moments rather than haunting intentionally. Jinn, according to lore, can become bound to places where emotional cycles never end. The Lemp family's repeated tragedies created a loop, grief feeding grief, until the boundary between the living and the unseen wore thin. Listeners often imagine ghosts as sudden figures meant to shock. But here the fear is slower, more intimate. The suspense lies in recognition, the sense that the past has not passed. Every tragic death reinforced the mansion's role as a witness, and witnesses remember. Over time, the house stopped releasing those memories. They lingered, shaping the atmosphere, influencing those who entered. Visitors today often report feeling sad or uneasy without knowing why, as if they've stepped into someone else's unfinished sorrow. This is why point 1 matters above all else. The haunting of Lemp Mansion is not a single event. It is a continuous story written in loss. The tragedies did not end with the family. They imprinted themselves into the space. Ghosts and jinn, bound by emotion and repetition, remain as keepers of that story. And as long as the mansion stands, the chain remains unbroken, quietly pulling every listener, every visitor, into its spell. Suspense at Lemp Mansion does not announce itself with screams or sudden terror. It seeps in slowly, almost respectfully, as if the house wants you to settle in before it reveals anything. The moment you cross the threshold, your senses begin to question each other. Your eyes see stillness, yet your ears insist on movement. This is where the mansion's reputation for ghost sightings and mysterious sounds takes on its true power, not as isolated events, but as a continuous presence that refuses to be dismissed, People often describe hearing footsteps first. Not hurried, not frantic, but measured, deliberate steps moving across upper floors. What makes these sounds unsettling is their consistency. They follow patterns, repeating night after night, as though someone unseen is still keeping a routine. This continuity is what deepens the suspense. Random noises can be ignored, repeated ones demand attention. They suggest intention. They suggest memory. And memory, when it belongs to the dead, becomes something far more dangerous. Shadows come next, slipping just beyond the edge of vision. Guests turn their heads, expecting to see another person, only to find empty hallways and unmoving walls. Yet the feeling remains, the unmistakable sense of being accompanied. Some believe these are ghosts, replaying fragments of their former lives, trapped in cycles they cannot escape. Others speak of Jinn, spirits that exist parallel to our world, capable of moving unseen, observing quietly, and influencing atmosphere rather than form. In places like Lemp Mansion, where emotional energy has been building for generations, such spirits are said to thrive. Suspense tightens in moments of silence. When the house grows too quiet, ears strain, waiting for the next sound. A soft knock. The creak of a door opening on its own. The faint murmur of voices that seem to fade the moment you focus on them. These experiences rarely happen once. They return, again and again, reinforcing the idea that the mansion is not reacting, it is continuing. Each sound adds another thread to a larger pattern, weaving fear through familiarity. Those who stay longer report sensations that cannot be explained by sound or sight alone. Sudden chills in warm rooms. The feeling of a presence standing just behind them. A light touch on the arm, gentle enough to make them turn, but firm enough to feel intentional. This is where the line between ghost and Jinn blurs. Jinn are often described as beings of subtle interaction, not always visible, but deeply felt. Ghosts, on the other hand, are remnants of human emotion. At Lemp Mansion, these forces seem to overlap, feeding off the same continuous well of sorrow and remembrance. What truly pulls listeners into the spell is how ordinary these moments sound, until they happen to you. There is no single climax, no clear ending to the fear. The suspense renews itself with every unexplained sound, every repeated shadow. Even daylight does not fully release the tension. The house remembers the night, and it carries that memory forward, waiting for darkness to return. Over time, visitors begin to sense that the mansion is not trying to frighten them. It is simply expressing itself in the only language it has left. The ghosts do not scream, they echo. The Jinn do not attack, they observe. And the continuity of these encounters suggests something far more unsettling than a passing haunting. It suggests permanence. The sounds, the sightings, the sensations, they are part of a cycle that never completed, a story still being told. And once you have listened long enough, you realize the mansion is not just haunted. It is speaking, patiently, to anyone willing to hear. To understand why Lemp Mansion feels so intensely alive, many turn to the ancient idea of Jinn, spirits believed to exist alongside humanity, unseen yet deeply present. Unlike ghosts, which are often tied to a single life or a single moment of death, Jinn are said to be drawn to places where human emotion gathers and repeats. Lemp Mansion is not defined by one tragedy, but by a continuity of loss, and that repetition creates the perfect environment for such spirits to linger, observe, and eventually become part of the place itself. Suspense begins with the realization that not all presences in the mansion feel human. Visitors often describe an awareness that is intelligent but distant, as if something is watching without revealing itself. This sensation does not feel angry or violent, but ancient and patient. In many traditions, Jinn are described as beings made from subtle energy, capable of slipping through shadows, moving through walls, and influencing the atmosphere rather than appearing openly. When guests feel sudden unease without cause, or a shift in mood the moment they enter a certain room, some believe this is the quiet influence of such spirits. The continuity of sorrow in Lemp Mansion acts like a beacon. Each tragedy left behind emotional residue, grief, regret, despair, that never fully dissipated. Over time, this residue layered itself into the fabric of the house. Jinn are said to be attracted to these emotional currents, not because they seek harm, but because such places resonate with their nature. The mansion became a shared space, occupied not only by the living and the dead, but by something in between. This overlapping presence deepens the suspense, because it challenges the listener's understanding of who, or what, belongs there. Ghosts within Lemp Mansion are often described as personal, familiar, almost recognizable. They walk, they linger, they repeat old behaviors. Jinn, however, are different. They do not repeat human routines, they adapt. This difference creates an unsettling tension. When a door opens slowly or a shadow moves against logic, it becomes difficult to decide whether the cause is a ghost reliving the past or a Jinn interacting with the present. That uncertainty is where fear takes root. The mansion does not offer clear answers, only sensations and questions that loop endlessly. Suspense grows stronger in moments when time seems distorted. Guests report losing track of minutes or feeling as though hours have passed when only moments have gone by. In folklore, Jinn are often associated with altered perceptions of time and space. At Lemp Mansion, this sense of dislocation reinforces the idea that the house exists in more than one layer of reality. The continuity between past and present feels blurred, as if the mansion is a meeting point where different forms of existence brush against each other without fully merging. What makes this presence so compelling is its subtlety. There are no dramatic confrontations, no clear threats. Instead, the mansion communicates through atmosphere. A heaviness in the chest, a sudden sadness with no source, a feeling of being gently guided away from certain rooms. These experiences suggest awareness, not randomness. Jinn are often described as observers of humanity, curious but cautious. In a place like Lemp Mansion, they may be drawn not only to the pain, but to the stories embedded in the walls. For listeners, this concept transforms the haunting from a simple ghost story into something deeper and more unsettling. The ghosts represent memory. The Jinn represent continuity. Together, they form a silent audience that never leaves, watching as new visitors step into an old narrative. The suspense lies in knowing that these spirits do not fade with time. They remain, bound to emotion rather than stone, ensuring that the story of Lemp Mansion continues, unseen, unheard, but always felt. One of the most unsettling aspects of Lemp Mansion is the sense that nothing there ever truly ended. The tragedies tied to the Lemp family did not close their chapters with death. Instead, they carried on, quietly unfolding in a different form. This is where the idea of continuity becomes chillingly real. The spirits associated with the mansion are not random or fleeting. They feel inherited, passed down through time like a shadowed legacy. Each generation of sorrow seems to have added another layer, another presence, another reason for the spirits to remain. Suspense grows from the awareness that these spirits did not choose to leave. Many ghost stories speak of a single soul trapped by a single event, but Lemp Mansion suggests something broader. The ghosts here feel collective, bound together by shared pain rather than individual identity. Visitors often describe sensations that feel layered, as if more than one presence occupies the same space. A footstep echoes, then another follows, slightly out of rhythm. A whisper overlaps another whisper. This overlapping creates a disturbing sense that time itself is stacked, not linear. Jinn, according to spiritual lore, are often drawn to such continuity. They are said to linger where cycles repeat and emotions remain unresolved. The mansion's repeated tragedies formed a pattern too strong to break. Each loss reinforced the presence of the unseen, making it harder for anything to move on. In this way, the Jinn did not replace the ghosts, they intertwined with them. The ghosts carry memory, while the Jinn carry awareness. Together, they form a living system of presence, one that feeds on continuity rather than chaos. Suspense sharpens when you realize that the spirits respond to the living. Guests report feeling watched more intensely when they speak about the family or acknowledge the mansion's history. It is as if attention strengthens the connection. In folklore, Jinn are said to be highly aware of human focus, drawn to intention and curiosity. Ghosts, too, are believed to linger where they are remembered. Lemp Mansion becomes a meeting point where remembrance keeps the past active. The spirits never left because they were never forgotten. What truly binds the spirits to the mansion is unfinished emotion. Regret that was never voiced. Grief that was never released. Questions that were never answered. These emotional remnants act like anchors. The ghosts replay moments, while the Jinn hold the space steady, ensuring that nothing dissolves completely. This creates an unbroken chain, a continuity that stretches from the first tragedy to every visitor who walks through the doors today. The suspense does not come from sudden fear, but from realization. The house is not haunted because something went wrong once. It is haunted because something kept going wrong, repeatedly, without resolution. Each spirit stayed because the environment never changed. The mansion continued to reflect sorrow, and sorrow continued to invite presence. Even renovations and restorations could not erase this cycle. Paint covers walls, but not memory. Listeners often feel a quiet chill when they imagine this permanence. The idea that spirits remain not out of anger, but out of familiarity. Lemp Mansion was their world, their stage, their witness. For Jinn, such places are crossroads, spaces where human emotion creates a lasting imprint. For ghosts, it is home. The continuity between them ensures that the mansion never truly empties. And so the spirits linger, not trapped, but rooted. Their presence is not a scream in the dark, but a constant breath behind the walls. The suspense lies in knowing that time alone cannot free them. As long as the story is told, as long as the mansion stands, the chain remains unbroken, and the unseen continues to watch, waiting, enduring. What makes Lemp Mansion truly unforgettable is not a single terrifying moment, but the way it slowly settles into the mind, refusing to let go. The quiet presence of the house works like a spell, subtle and persistent, drawing people in without force. From the outside, it appears calm, dignified, almost inviting. Yet once inside, an invisible weight presses down, and suspense begins its slow, deliberate work. It is not fear that greets you first, but awareness, the sense that something is paying attention. This presence is never loud. It doesn't rush or reveal itself all at once. Instead, it waits, allowing the listener or visitor to relax just enough before the atmosphere shifts. A faint sound echoes where no one stands. A shadow lingers longer than it should. These moments are easy to dismiss individually, but together they form a continuous pattern that is impossible to ignore. The mansion does not frighten through chaos. It unsettles through consistency. That continuity is what pulls listeners deeper, making every small detail feel intentional. Ghosts in Lemp Mansion seem to exist as impressions rather than forms. They are felt more often than seen. A heaviness in the air. A sadness that arrives without warning. These sensations suggest that the spirits are not trying to scare anyone. They are simply present, repeating what they know. Their silence speaks louder than screams. Each experience blends into the next, creating a smooth, unbroken flow of unease that follows you from room to room. Alongside these ghosts is the quieter influence of Jinn, spirits believed to observe rather than interrupt. Their presence is often described as intelligent and curious, aware of human emotion and drawn to it. In Lemp Mansion, the Jinn seem to amplify the atmosphere, deepening the silence, stretching the tension. When visitors feel watched but never see anyone, when the air seems to thicken with expectation, this is where many believe the Jinn reveal themselves, not as shapes, but as awareness itself. Suspense builds in the way the mansion responds to attention. The more one listens, the more the house seems to answer. A pause in conversation invites a sound. A moment of reflection invites a chill. This exchange creates a bond between the living and the unseen. The mansion becomes interactive, not through action, but through reaction. Continuity plays a key role here. These responses have been reported across decades, suggesting a long memory, an unchanging pattern. What draws listeners into the spell is the realization that nothing here demands belief. The experiences are quiet enough to be questioned, gentle enough to be rationalized, and yet they linger. Long after leaving, people recall the stillness, the sense of being observed, the way the mansion seemed aware of their presence. This lingering effect is the most powerful haunting of all. The ghosts and Jinn do not chase, they accompany. They remain close, not to terrify, but to be acknowledged. Lemp Mansion's quiet presence turns curiosity into unease and unease into fascination. The suspense never peaks because it never needs to. It stretches endlessly, bound by continuity, carried by memory, and sustained by the unseen. In that silence, the listener finds themselves fully drawn in, listening closely, wondering not what will happen next, but what is already there, waiting. So as you step away from the story of Lemp Mansion, don't rush to shake off that feeling in your chest. Let it linger, because places like this remind us that the past never truly disappears. It watches, it waits, and sometimes it speaks in silence. The ghosts, the Jinn, the echoes of unfinished lives are not just stories meant to scare. They are reminders that every place carries memory, and every memory leaves a mark. If this story made you pause, if it sent a chill down your spine, or made you glance over your shoulder, then you've already felt its power. My advice is simple. Listen closely to the places you visit, respect the unseen, and never dismiss what you feel just because you can't explain it. Curiosity is natural, but awareness keeps you safe. And if you want to explore more haunted places, deeper mysteries, and stories where history, spirits, and suspense collide, don't walk away just yet. Share this story with someone who loves the unknown as much as you do. Subscribe, stay with us, and step into the shadows again, because the next story is already waiting for you.